The Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by CNMC, Syngenta Canada, and the Alberta Wheat Commission.
Peter Johnson at Wheat Pete, RealAgriculture.com, and we're back here at the Follings Research Farm. I love this. Remember, we were here about 3 weeks ago and we did a drill demonstration. So we had 4 different drills. We had the John Deere drill with Cedar Forest technology, Middlesex Soil and Crop. We had the Bourgault drill that Delta Farm Power brought, and again, it had Cedar Forest kind of technology. Then we had the Follings John Deere drill. So it's another 750, 1560 kind of John Deere drill, but no downforce, no Cedar Force. And then we have the old technology that Joanna wishes they could throw away.
I hope it never sees an acre again.
The sunflower drill. And it's not that there's anything wrong with the technology, it's just older technology, and maybe we should move beyond that. So Joanna, what are we going to look at?
So we're already seeing some really cool stuff here today, and we're seeing a lot of differences between treatments. So we're going to take a look at the impact of down pressure here. We're going to see what seeding depth is happening amongst the treatments. We're going to take a look at what residue management is having on emergence and growth staging, and we're also going to take a look at the differences in row width.
Cool stuff. Here we go. So what's really astounding about this Cedar Forest, second year that we've been doing it, we got it late last year. Thanks so much to Precision for providing the Cedar Forest technology, the Middlesex Soil and Crop, buying the new drill. Really neat stuff to play with. And can we see a difference? Last year, we saw a couple of blips, but not as much as we thought. Here, what an unbelievable difference we're seeing in Cedar Forest. So you can look at this. What a nice stand I have here. Almost every plant at the same stage versus Joanna, your drill, another John Deere. What do you got there?
Yeah, so you'd think we'd have enough down pressure with these John Deere drills. And here what we're seeing is we've got plants already at 1 tiller while we have other plants that are still emerging. So something's going on there that obviously the Cedar Forest technology is providing or adapting to the down pressure that's needed as we go across the field.
Yep, so yours is a John Deere drill just without Cedar Forest, right? This is the Middlesex drill. It's got the Cedar Forest. What's really amazing is the first pass out along the plot. As Shane went down and Sean Livingston from Precision was with him, they could see that the front gang was taking 300 pounds more downforce than the back gang to get it in the ground. And without that technology, you don't know that. So why that was still makes me scratch my head. Were we on top of the wheel traffic from the silage harvester? Like something's going on there. But what a nice stand. This is going to be good. Whether it actually yields
so we don't know yet. We're seeing some differences in staging, some more uniformity with the Cedar Forest, but once it comes to yield, we'll have a better understanding or a better idea of whether or not it really made a difference at the end of the day.
But today, we'd pick the Cedar Forest.
Absolutely.
So you would wonder, what the heck? How is it that we're seeing this difference in emergence, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what it really comes down to is planting depth. And you know, lots of people ask me, why? Why is a drill where I put that press wheel, that depth gauge wheel, right beside the disc going into the soil? Why is that not as good as a corn planter? Because I always whine about corn planters, right, Joanna?
Yes, you do.
Yeah, corn planters are just better. Well, here's a perfect example. So the drill is running here, and you can see we've got a difference in height of the soil. And that's left over from either a track from the equipment or from the corn planter or something. And so now my depth gauge wheel runs here, and suddenly instead of getting my wheat planted as deep as I want, now I'm super shallow. So I don't know, here I'm only not probably half an inch deep. And I think, Joanna, you found places where you're just as shallow?
Yeah, we've got some variation here too. We've got plants, just sitting below the soil surface. While if we look to some of these more plants that are further advanced, the seeding depth is right at that 1 inch to 1 1/4 inches. And seeding depth is so important when we have that variation with growing degree days. We see the variation in emergence. The deeper the crop, the longer it's going to take to emerge.
So if we go half an inch or an inch deeper, how much more heat does it take, Joanna?
So it's 50 growing degree days for every inch of seeding depth. So if you're seeding at 2 inches, that's 100 growing degree days to get that seed out of the ground. If you're going 1 inch, that's 50 growing degree days plus 80 growing degree days for germination.
But what's really cool is you can see here, these plants, they emerged earlier. And why is that? Well, dang it. Again, the depth gauge wheel ran here. So now, even though we thought we were seeding about 1.5 inches deep, these guys got in extra deep. They're at least 2 inches, and you would think that would be a bad thing, but
we're seeding early. We've got lots of heat. It's not October 15th, so got lots of time to accumulate those growing degree days, get that crop out of the ground and growing well before going into winter.
Yeah. So we really always talk about seeding at that 1 inch, 1.25 inch depth because of the heat thing. But man, if you gotta air, you have to air on the deep side to find moisture, because if you don't hit moisture, this is what happens. You were super dry till just recently.
Yeah.
And shallow plants simply don't work.
So one of the challenges with seeding into corn silage stubble is residue. And you've probably heard us talk about spread your soybean residue even, and residue spread pattern is so important. And when seeding into corn silage in particular, we're getting those root balls. So what we're finding here between the different technologies is where we don't have enough down pressure to actually cut through that residue, we're actually starting to see some of the seeds just germinate on the soil surface. We've got some coleoptils just poking through there, but we really didn't get that nice seeding depth, that good seed to soil contact compared to some of the other technology that we're looking at here today.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I think Horst Bonner once said, residue is the enemy. And that we thought was just for soybeans. Man, residue is the enemy, even for wheat. So these root balls, like, look at the difference in the stand here. We've got such a difference in stand in terms of plant count, in terms of stage of emergence, and that's just the root ball. Man, you talk about residue. The last couple of days I've been doing drill evaluations, and even in soybean residue, it can be such a challenge to get through that residue, and this residue spread pattern, and actually making sure you're able to slice through and get that accurate depth makes a huge difference, because I think, Joanna, we want it all to look like this.
Absolutely.
And not so much like...
Yeah, whereas here we're seeing, you know, lots of spaces between plants. Like I said, we've got some seed that's just starting to germinate because we've recently got some moisture. It's just sitting on the soil surface. But at the end of the day, we really need something that's going to cut through that residue. And in the first place, we need to make sure that our residue spread pattern is adequate when we're harvesting our soybeans.
Yeah.
And so another thing that we get questions out and we're wanting to explore is row spacing. And so what I'm sitting in here is a 10-inch sunflower drill. We've also got a 7.5-inch row spacing, and we want to explore whether or not going to narrow row spacing pays and gives us more yield, because some of the data coming out of Michigan is showing that if we go to 5-inch row spacing, so even narrower than 7.5-inch rows, there's an advantage to that. And so we want to see whether or not that holds true here to Ontario. And so hopefully, fingers crossed, we get a corn planter in some of the other locations that we can take a look at that 5-inch row spacing compared to the 7.5-inch row spacing.
And certainly some of the European drills that are out there, they're on 4-inch, 4.5-inch, 5-inch spacing. If you go back a few years, we had a Vaterstat Rapide on a 5-inch spacing. We put it up against the 7.5-inch drill, just like I'm sitting in here. We didn't see that big yield increase, but dang it, there's people wanting to go to 15-inch rows with a corn planter. Does that give us equal yields? What's the yield penalty to that? More accurate depth. Corn planter, right? Ooh, baby, if we could do that with wheat. Meanwhile, there's other people want to do twin row wheat and plant soybeans. What's the yield penalty there? So one of the added things we're trying to learn at this particular location and other locations as well. So amazing stuff. We are looking to move the bar forward on wheat production. We've started it here at the Follings Research Farm. We're going to be back, Joanna?
Yeah, we hope to be back still again this fall. We're going to take a look at tiller count and a few other things and see what kind of differences we can see.
And we're going to follow this right through to harvest, of course, because whatever we want to do, we want everybody out there to grow great wheat.